show you. Here is a shot of the original nest, N1, and I'm at Command Central, which is the Holt House garage, right basically almost directly below this tree. This is where the famous Y branch is, and this is where Mom and Dad Decorah, many and eaglets. Eaglets love to perch there. It's a great tree. Another tree with great access. It's right next to the creek. It's right next to the fish hatchery. But you can see this is the nest that was built by this 4-year-old male eagle, and Mom Decorah just sat there and kind of watched him do that. We had a lot of uncertainty going on there, but you can see this is fairly quick. Take a look at the branches that were brought in there. He's bringing in some hay. Looks like hay or tall grasses and material in there. I think this was over several weeks that he got this nest this far. So there's an example of eagles as nest builders. In putting things together here, decided that I had to show you all this video again. I love this video. This is from this year. Mom is in the nest. You'll see DM2, and he brings the stick in the nest, and now we get to see what happens in family time here. So this is the eagle's home. They are working on this nest, and I guess it's hard to decide sometimes who's the one who's managing and who's the doer. So I think we've got both of them trying to do the same thing here. But if you saw that, DM2 got a peck from Mom, and I think he just said, well, I think that we're done here. So we'll just work on another stick. That is one of the most hilarious videos I think I've ever seen, but that is a favorite. You'll notice that when DM2 came in there, I'm just going to switch over to the nest here. When DM2 came in there to the nest, he was carrying that branch and had a good access point. One thing I think that's interesting is, where do the materials come from when the eagle is building the nest? We got to find that out pretty much by watching. I'm going to take one quick check here at sounds. It looks like sound is coming through okay. The thing I was talking about was, where do they get the branches from? We know that there's a predominance of cottonwood trees around, and so cottonwood trees could be a source. We've got other hardwoods around here too, hardwood forest here. We got oaks, maples, things like that. But the eagles are going to take what's available. The thing that I think is interesting that I've noticed over the years here, and we got some great videos with the audio showing that I believe for the stick material that eagles get the majority of the sticks from up in the air by breaking them off. We've got a lot of great videos where you can actually watch one of the eagles in the nest, Mom Decorah in one instance I'm thinking about, and she's watching basically like a tennis game. She's watching Dad Decorah take off, and he flies around and her head is following him. You hear this crack of branches in the background, and then he goes flying by looking for an approach. I mean, some of these sticks are, take it for granted that this looks like these eagles are pretty small, and this is a pretty small nest, but this is 7+ feet in diameter that we're looking at right now with that nest. But he's coming up there trying to find the best way to get that branch into the tree. So again, access is important, but I believe that and we don't have any research about this, but I believe that most of the sticks that they probably bring in, they actually prune and grab and break off from up in the air. The grasses and a lot of the materials that come in for insulative material, for more of that, it is grass. We've got plenty of video showing them on the ground, picking that grass up, getting hay from the nearby farm and farms of the area. So I think a lot of the sticks come from branches and trees, and a lot of the insulative materials that are finer are coming, well, actually corn stalks and corn husks and things like that are coming from the ground also. So that's where that stuff is coming from. So back into the story here, we saw the initial nest. That was a starter nest. I'm going to show a graphic here. And this graphic shows, this is a photo of Dad Decorah, I'm pretty sure, with the whiter head feathers there. This is Dad Decorah sitting in pretty much the starter nest, and you can see with that lower arrow there, colored arrow, you can see, I'm just using that as a marker, as that's where the base of the nest is. So you can see there's some corn husks up there and some branches in there. This was October 19th of 2015. So this is in the fall. Not much had been added to the nest yet, but you can see that where Neil and Kike left off, this is pretty close to where that started. So if we take a look at where that lower colored arrow is, that's about the base on that branch of the nest tree. You can see the second arrow up, there's like a hook shape that terminates by the arrow there, the arrowhead, and then up on the top arrow you can see kind of that hook curving to the right there and terminating. We're going to use those as markers, taking a look at where the nest is right now. So if you take a look at those markers, and also realize that this nest is probably, I'd say probably 5 feet at least in diameter, and remember that's about a 3-foot tall eagle. We're looking from overhead there, so it is compressed in the view that we're looking at there, but there's just assume that that's about a 3-foot tall eagle there. So the distance between arrows there is probably pretty close to 3 feet. So when we take a look at that, you can see that the way those arrows are placed, there's about, from the colored arrow at the bottom to the top arrow, there's probably somewhere between 6 to 7 feet there. So let's move on and let's take a look here. So this is a shot from our fixed camera, and we've got this one live and we show it sometimes, but you can see that bottom arrow there. So that's that marker down where the nest started. So when we take a look at that, we see that middle arrow, which is kind of pointing at the bottom of that crack or crevice in the one of the main trunks of the cottonwood tree there. The arrow that's pointing to the left at the bottom of that crease of the tree bark. And then at the top, you see that hook shape hooking over to the right, about at the same level that DM2 is sitting in the nest there. Just took this shot earlier today, about an hour before talking to you here. So that shows that pretty much what has been added on this nest through the 2016 season, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and now coming up 4 to 5 years now of material being added there. So if we look at those markers, and based on eagle sizing, we could probably measure this when we go back up in the tree, but taking a look there, it's looking like we probably have at least 6 to 7 feet of material, eagle-made material. So the man-made part down below, and then the eagle-made part of the nest up above. Isn't that cool to have a nest collaboration with a pair of eagles? We also have that, remind you guys, up at our north nest back in 2018. The nest came down. These branches do rot. They will decay, and the nest structure up there is not in the crotch of a tree with multiple branches coming up there. That one is a different structure. That's another topic that we can get into here, but that's also a man-made nest that we had where the eagles adopted the man-made nest that we started. So we're shooting for 2 for 2. Hopefully we don't have to do this again. We made these nests, so hopefully these nests are going to be there for quite some time. So anyway, just a couple other things here. Can't take questions or anything, but please feel free on the chat, which say hello to everyone on the chat right now. Say hello to everyone on the Explore Discus discussion going on here now too. But any questions that you guys have about the Eagle Nest building, please feel free to shoot them our way, and we will follow up with some of these. So I did want to cover just a couple things. We did do measurements this last year when we were up in the nests, and a lot of these questions come up about, so first question, how much does N2B weigh? So if we take a look at the dimensions that we got, so when we were up there doing our cam maintenance work this last fall, we got dimensions of about 6 to 7 feet wide in 2 different spots for N2B. And from the bottom of the nest to the top of the nest was about 6.5 feet high. So how does that compare with what we think? We probably had about 2.5, maybe 3 foot high on the original starter nest, and we just guesstimated from looking at this graphic here that we probably had maybe about another 6 to 7 feet added. So maybe there's a little bit of a distortion looking at the angle that we're at there. So anyway, quite a bit of material added to that cone-shaped nest. It's in a cottonwood tree. Whatever the branches are in the area, for the predominance of trees where those eagles are breaking those off, are probably going to be the majority of what the composition of that nest is, with leaves and corn husks and grass and hay. We also get fish, decomposing fish, and squirrel and rabbit and other material that makes that probably one of the best potting soil decaying nest areas for plants to grow in that you could imagine. So based on calculations, Amy came up with a calculation of about 1,600 pounds. So pretty, a little shy of a ton there. We'll probably do some more calculations here and double check on that, but just gonna pop over here now to the actual nest cam. And again, if we take a look and pan down here, we can take a look and see where that 2x4, there's actually 2 of them that you can see there. You can see the ends where the base of that nest was. And as we travel up, looking at the nest here, Mom sitting there on her 3 treasures there, or 3 eggs, probably 6.5, 7, maybe even more now. The one thing I can tell you from looking at this graphic right here, I'm going to put this graphic back up. This camera was positioned estimating that it was going to be able to be zoomed into the center of the nest. So where that middle arrow is there, right underneath where DM2 is, that center spot in the middle of those branches there would have been where we focused that camera, assuming that another 1/2 foot was going to be put on that nest. So right about where that middle white bar is about where they started this year, and everything on top of that is just nesting material that they put on in the last several months since October, November, December, January, February, and into March here. So they put at least probably close to 1 foot of material on there just this year, just this season. Maybe a little bit shy of that because it does compress. But so anyway, that's what they have done this season so far. Let's go back to the live stream.